Hey guys, Dr. K here with my son Michael.
What's up, guys?
The other Dr. K eventually. We're actually answering questions that came off of Instagram. So we want to be diligent and be able to answer some of the questions that you guys have had. So go ahead, Michael, shoot. We'll see if we can answer some of these.
All right, Sean has jokes. He says, who's the tallest guy you know?
Sean?
Yeah,
so
by far.
That's easy.
He said, what's one car you miss?
He's what, 7'1" or something?
Something crazy.
Yeah. So the car that I missed, this is easy. It's the 488 Spider, the black one that we had, the Ferrari 488 Spider. We picked that up. We actually had ordered one in black with our spec, but it was a long production and somebody had bought it. And it's funny because we were adjusting the chairs right before we started filming because I was so low. And what happened is the gentleman that bought it was extremely short, and they didn't have the electric seat adjusters.
Oh yeah.
So when he sat down, he couldn't see over the steering wheel. So the car went up.
They
for
put a
sale
manual
and we
one,
bought
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah. We eventually got the rear lifter.
We ended up buying. But yeah, that would definitely be the car that I miss the most. It was just very sleek, and I love convertibles. It's nice to drop the top and be able to drive around.
Yeah, that was sick. A12 GTS and that were probably the sickest.
Yeah, A12 GTS too. And I eventually, hopefully, we'll get another A12 GTS.
Yeah, that was. What is this is Nick, our friend Nick, AMG Nick. He says, what is your time best spent when running a business as an owner to scale? So, I'm sorry, where is your time best spent when running a business as an owner to scale?
On the processes, I think. So if you're going to scale, you have to make sure that the processes are running properly. You can't scale if there isn't some type of organization within the company itself. So sometimes it's easy to do things on a smaller scale, but the larger you get, from a quality control perspective, you have to have a good process and a good plan to be able to scale anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like a franchise plan when you buy a business, right? That's kind of the selling point of a franchise, right? They help you kind of scale it. So Cody _I_ asked men's health and how can others reach out?
What's the question? Men's health?
Yeah, men's health. So I think he's men's mental health. Oh. And how can others reach out? I'm not doing a very good job reading these. I can't read, actually.
No, it's amazing you got this far in school. But no, so from men's mental health, I think it's extremely important. And now one of the things that's actually sad from that perspective is based on society, men are always thought that they have to be very stoic and not show any of their weaknesses. And I think men aren't very good at talking about the problems that they have, whether that be burnout, whether that be anxiety, etc. And there's nothing wrong with seeking help in any type of disease process that you have. When you're diabetic, you don't keep that a secret and hope that your sugar goes down. Yeah. So it shouldn't be any different with mental health. The importance with any mental health issues, whether that be anxiety or depression, is it really, your social network really isolates you from that. Not isolates, insulates you from that. So I think if anybody is out there that is experiencing mental health issues, it's extremely important to seek out a professional. And if they're not bad enough to seek out a professional, definitely do things to help your mental health. In other words, for anxiety, make sure you're getting proper sleep, etc.
I think that's the big thing. You always talk about proper mindset and stuff, but you're not, you would never tell somebody who has clinical depression, oh, just get your mindset better. And that's not what you're talking about. I think people get confused and they comment. I sometimes will see that they say, oh, you're what you're saying is you're telling somebody who's actually depressed or somebody who has a mental health disorder that just to think about it betterly. You're not saying that at all. No, it's just,
not at all.
Yeah.
And we don't purport to give any mental health advice whatsoever. Exactly. Like I say, you should definitely seek professional help. What we're doing is we're taking someone who's functional, who doesn't have a quote-unquote disease process, and actually are telling them, hey, change your mindset to be able to do the natural things. But if you're suffering from depression, you're going to need more than just changing your mindset. You need professional help.
Yep. Somebody also asked, so this is Alex Vidikin, I believe. He said just Heartbreak. And I know that question was asked by a lot of people, kind of the idea of what is your advice for heartbreak? How do you kind of, overcome that? And,
well, now I'm Dear Abby and doing love advice. I think the sad thing is that everyone's going to have heartbreak in their lifetime, right? Life is a series of ups and series of downs. All of us at one point are going to pass away. We're going to lose loved ones. Sometimes relationships break up. The problem is that we tend to make it bigger than what it actually is. So when things tend to happen, we catastrophize. And that is something that we could control, right? We say, oh, if I lose this girl or this guy, it's going to be the end of the world. No one's going to want me. And you overgeneralize, right? So you take all those cognitive distortions and you throw them in a blender when something bad happens, and you start thinking about all of those things. So the important thing is to understand is we're all going to lose people. You just have to be able to stay strong, understand that for whatever reason that actually happened, concentrate on the happy things that happened during the relationship, and understand that life is still going to continue.
Yep, and I think that was somebody asked Ozieg. Ozig asked, sorry if I pronounced anything wrong here, but he said moving on from toxic relationships or how to pinpoint them. I think that was the same exact thing, right? Like maybe a little bit different, but if, realizing that there's quote unquote other fish in the sea, and that maybe, you can move on from certain things.
Yeah,
right?
and what happens in toxic relationships a little bit is remember in one of our Instagram posts, and I think we may have talked about this in one of the podcasts as well, we will stay with something that is comfortable as opposed to changing to something that is unknown. So even though something is hurting us, we'll stay in that toxic relationship because it's unknown to us. And our fear of trying something different, remember the brain was designed to do two things, to keep you safe. So what does safe mean? No change. Anytime the brain hears change, it freaks out, right? And to be efficient, which is your habit. So that change piece, we will do things that actually hurt us because we know it's known to us, then do something that's going to be better for us. So that's why we tend to stay in the toxic relationships.
Super Jack's World wants to know, what's influenced your insightfulness over the years?
Who said I was insightful? Jack did. Thank you, Jack, for saying that I'm insightful. Really growth. It's funny. I think yesterday you posted something on Instagram where, I don't know if you posted the last line where I says that's just the view of an older guy. But really, as time goes on and you get older, you realize what's important and what's not. So some people are young and they have great insight. I'm lucky because I'm older and I have a lot of experience which gave me insight. That's because I failed so many times on different things. I can tell you, hey, don't do it this way because I did it that way and it didn't work out that way. So I think with experience comes insight. So you don't have to be old to have insight, but it's with experience, that's where you get your insight. So you try things, you fail, you get insight, you try something else, and you just keep progressing along.
Maddie M3 asked, how to cope with stop being burnt out when you have a busy career in life? Please.
Yeah, burnout is a big issue, right? And three things normally: exhaustion, physical and mental. You're cynical, you have a lot of negative views of things, and you feel like no matter what you do, nothing is going to actually change. It's almost a learned helplessness. And one of the things that we actually in our consulting company talk a lot about is if you really take your emotional intelligence and increase your emotional intelligence, that's an insulator against burnout. Because when you get better at your emotional intelligence is your self-awareness. That means now you're aware of the emotions that you're having. And then the next piece is self-management. You're going to manage those emotions. And then you learn how to deal with other people with social awareness. And then in relationship management, what are you doing? You're bringing the team together, whether that team be your family or whether that team be work people as well.
Yeah.
So for burnout, the important things are a lot of sleep, good nutrition, exercise, and truly understanding emotional intelligence. Now, burnout is really an organizational issue. It really has to do with the things that are happening in the organization. Are you being overworked? Are you not being treated fairly? Yeah. Are you having bad relationships? Yep. Are you not being given a fair monetization for your work?
Your time.
Those are the important things that actually from an organizational perspective are the stressors that are causing the burnout, but that back half that we talked about, you taking care of yourself. So from consulting, because you've heard me speak a lot, if you really want to have a culture of wellness in an organization, you have to address the organizational side as well as the individual side. address those 6 factors from the organizational component, and then build better resilience for yourself. You bring those 2 together and you have a good well-being culture.
Ferrari or Porsche?
Probably depends on the Ferrari. Daily driver Porsche. Sitting in the garage or in the living room Ferrari.
Agreed with that. I think that's good. I like this one a lot. It says, kind of a more general question, but Justin _ man says, what made you choose medicine?
I tell this story. Some of my friends and family know this story. I always wanted to do something that was professional, and I think you've shared on Instagram, and we may have shared on other things that my dad or your grandfather came from the old country and wanted to be a physician, but really had a family at that time and chose the route of being a chemist. But when I was 13 years old and lived in Chicago, I took a bus down to City Hall to see what court cases were like. And I went into a court case and it was so boring. At that time, I decided to be a doctor. And it was from that time on that I just pursued medicine. And I truly enjoyed it. It was a good career choice.
Somebody asked, this is a good question. I don't know, this is kind of just more economic, but it says, John _L1250, how is it my grandparents could afford a family, new cars, new house off a $30K salary?
Yeah, because, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save and how you spend it. And we know that because we spend like drunken sailors all the time. So it's very important to be able to budget and figure out how to do that. And look at your grandparents. My father he worked 2 jobs, but he put 2 kids through medical school with minimal amount of loans. They built a house with your other great uncle, and they had a house that was paid for. They had at one point 4 cars. So they're able to do it because it's discipline. It's understanding what's important. Odds are that the grandparents did not go out for Starbucks 25 times a day.
There's so many more easy ways to spend money nowadays, but I also feel like it's so much harder to live nowadays based on the economics. I don't know the actual data behind it, but you see that a lot. Obviously there is inflation, things like that, but you just look at the cost of living is still rising, and the salary and the amount of money that people are getting compensated, I think, is not going up as high. So that, obviously, the times change too, right? But I also think there's a lot of things too that maybe you don't have to go to college for, per se, if you wanted to choose something else. You don't have to go into all that debt. Like, I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of intuitive things. A lot of smart business people we know maybe never even went to college, but they're still being super smart. They created a company that's generational. Mm-hmm. So I think the cost of living is definitely up. There's no denying that.
But again, it doesn't matter how much you make, it's how you spend.
Oh, yeah,
I think one of the important things is if you're serious about finance or you're serious about anything that you want to change, one of the most important factors is monitoring everything that you do. So what was the gentleman's name?
I lost it now because there's the others.
Well, whoever it was, I apologize. If you just go and you take a little piece of paper and a pencil and track how much money you spend on all of the things throughout the day, and you'd be shocked. And then go ask your grandparents if they spent that kind of money on those things, and I think you'll find that they did not.
Daily habits that you cannot live without. Really like that one. That's by
Spending
Roland
money on
Rosati. We should probably do a tracking, like a graph of how much money we've spent in coffee.
No, it's how much money you've spent on coffee, because I drink it out of the...
well, you still buy it though from there. I'm sure we probably can make some really good coffee at home.
Good daily habit that I can't live without, and it's not that I'm going to be on the cover of Men's Health anytime soon, because I'm not, but it's really my exercise, my walking. Because when I walk, I think, and that kind of
that's how I study too.
Allows me,
and
it's genetic. The difference is, and I don't mean to tease you, because I'm glad you were able to do this. The difference is you're walking around our beautiful pool. I was in the basement in Chicago kicking rats out of the basement while I was studying. So life changes a little bit, but
no, that was good. There's another one that says, this guy wants you to just talk more about cars, especially BMW. So what's your favorite BMW?
The M5 CS out of all those, although I did drive a 7 Series the other day, and that was very comparable to the Rolls Royce. One of my friends has a 7 Series that he wanted me to drive. But I like BMW. It's a great daily car, and it also has the ability to be extremely responsive when you want it to. I like the M2 CS as well. I think that's fun to drive for a stick. Again, as long as you have open road ahead of you.
Yeah.
I can't stand
I got caught in
manual
traffic jam the
ones.
other day, and that's
Yeah,
not so.
no, you get aggravated.
Why don't younger people give worth to mental health and awareness? And that's from Abdul Rahman, period 060.
Don't give.
Yeah. So why don't younger people give worth to mental health and awareness?
I don't know. I think it's extremely important. I mean, that's again, when you look at the My Focus model that we keep harping on, it really, I wish, as I've said numerous times before, I wish I was smart enough to have designed it the way that it landed, but it happened by happenstance that those are the most important things. Your physical health and your mental health are the most important, because it doesn't matter what you acquire throughout your lifetime. If you don't have the mental health to be able to enjoy it, if you don't have the mental health to be able to build relationships, strong relationships, to share all those things with, it's not going to matter. And what happens is that people keep, for some reason, chasing all the materialistic things, thinking that that's going to make them happy. Sean Anker wrote a great book, The Happiness Advantage. He's a gentleman from Harvard, PhD. And when I was growing up, people said, go to school, do well, get a profession, get a job, and you'll be extremely happy. And in reality, they ran numerous studies. It's the reverse. The people that are actually successful are happy before they're successful. So it's extremely important to work on your mental health.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really, really important. Somebody asked, Mendeem.official asked real estate agent tips if you have any. If not, that's fine. You could talk about reinvesting, etc.
No, I have a good tip, and I don't know. This is not my idea. And for some reason, I think it was Darren Hardy in his book, The Compound Effect, but I could be wrong. But I thought this was really cool, and I do some coaching with real estate professionals, and was just there today, and I shared this tip with them. So when a listing drops off, realtors always then know that the listing is off, and they call and say, hey, I noticed it didn't sell. I could do a better job. Let me give it a crack. Well, what Hardy did was, as opposed to calling, I think it was Hardy, so if it's not, I apologize, but instead of calling, he went to the house, rang the doorbell, and handed them a sold sign and said, if you work with me, that's the sign you're going to put in your front lawn. So I thought that was really good. So hopefully that's a helpful hint. Although I told a bunch of RE/MAX agents that today, so everybody might start using that line. But
what about the idea of college students, PhD students, medical students? They need certain degrees in order to get into their specialty. Kind of what. If you need a PhD, et cetera, what do you have? What advice do you have for them to, number one, maybe make a good impression for getting that PhD, kind of the career path they should choose for that? What are your recommendations for that?
I think the most important thing is to definitely chase something that you're going to want to do for the rest of your life. If you're chasing something for money or in order to do it as a stepping stone, okay. But it's really important to love what you do. You asked earlier about medicine. I really enjoyed it, right? If you don't enjoy things, you're going to burn out really quickly, and life is going to be miserable.
I was reading a thing on Reddit about, I feel like I talk about this with my friends all the time, that medicine, you could do so many other things. If you put the same work ethic into medicine and put it into something else without being cocky, right? Like, you have to go into it with that humble attitude. If you go into it with that attitude, you can achieve a lot of things, because it's a matter of becoming a master at something, right? There's people that look at, like, Rolls-Royce, for example, right? The guy who paints the lines and the thing, he's a master of it. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of things that you could do with that same passion. It's just, don't go into something for the money, go into something for the actual passion. And Extalgic, who does a lot of the video editing here, who's our primary producer, so give him a follow. He asked, passion or discipline, what's more important?
So Angela Duckworth in Grit did a study on that, and it was passion and perseverance, if I'm not mistaken, are the two most important things. I think discipline is probably going to eke out a little bit over passion. But I think passion is extremely important to kind of almost get you started in that direction. but it's definitely discipline, not motivation, because action comes first, motivation comes second. So it's going to be discipline, and then perseverance is a close second. In my eyes, I'm sure other
I feel like
people
passion
disagree.
and discipline is the greatest combination, though,
Yeah.
because you're passionate about something. You wake up in the morning every day.
And discipline would be perseverance, which was the whole grit piece. So they actually looked at people that entered, not Annapolis, West Point. I think it was West Point, but may not have been. And they looked at all of the stats of all of the people who made it. And it wasn't those that were athletes for Hell's Week. It wasn't the smartest people. It was the people that actually had passion and perseverance, grit to be able to get through it. So if you use perseverance as discipline, I think they combine together.
This one I like. Young ER doc, so his name is Call Me Doc. Said young ER physician here wondering about how left clinic. I believe he's asking how you left clinical practice to leverage skills elsewhere. What can you use? Like, what skills can you use?
And actually, that's how we're sitting here today. So I left clinical practice to become a chief medical officer. I did have a little bit of business acumen because we didn't just work the ER, we actually ran the ER group. But I learned all of my skill set after I became a chief medical officer, because we've talked about this before. Really, as physicians, the only leadership style that you really have, not everybody, but a majority, is just command and control, right? Because in the ER, when all hell is breaking loose and everything's on fire, you want somebody to command and control. Well, when you actually go into the C-suite, command and control is the last thing that you want to be able to do. You want to be able to lead people through influence. Your leadership is nothing more than influencing people to go ahead and actually execute on the mission and vision of the organization. So the tidbit that I would give is everybody should really hone their emotional intelligence. We talked earlier, emotional intelligence is going to insulate you against burnout. It's also going to go ahead and help you get into the C-suite. It's going to make your life a lot easier. You're going to have better relationships with your patients. So the ability, emotional intelligence, the ability to be intelligent about your emotions, to understand how to take care of yourself first and then deal with others, is probably the most important thing you could learn in life.
Somebody commented on your thing and said, my professor told me, or so like a boss or professor said, if they ask you what is one thing that you have that's really good, say emotional intelligence, because not a lot of people have that emotional intelligence.
But they have to know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Then people also said, a lot of people ask about like financial advice, like what do you recommend?
And I don't.
Yeah.
Just like medicine and finance, everything is different. I would recommend reading. To be honest with you, there's a lot of good books on finance. Psychology of Money is a good book. Believe it or not, Tony Robbins, I shouldn't say believe it or not, put out a couple good books. I think one of them is Unshakable. The other is Mastery of Money. So it really depends, because for a long time we did real estate, really didn't do a lot of stocks. Then we did a little bit of stocks. Now we invest in some areas in cars, right? So it's really understanding one thing and being comfortable with it. But I think through Master Your Money and Unshakable, if you read those books, you'll get a better understanding of the financial world if you don't have one yet, and understand how to invest in mutual funds, how not to get get the wool pulled over your eyes on costs and things of that nature.
Yeah, I feel like, there's a lot of good things you could do nowadays. There's a lot of ways to invest your money that's at your fingertips too, all these apps, right? You could invest in stocks, you could bet on things, you could do so many different things. So I feel like that's there. Also, people ask about like loss as well, like kind of like how to get over loss, how to get over grief. I won't mention the specific person in that one because I don't want. But they asked about that as well. So
yeah, and that too is emotional intelligence. It's very similar to the heartbreak question that you talked about, and everybody deals with grief differently. I think when you come to the understanding of what we talked earlier, and maybe I'm focusing in on this a little bit differently as I get older, but you understand that really this is a finite existence. You're only going to live for a long period of time, and nobody knows how long anybody's going to live, right? So you may go young, you may go old.
They tell you now that you could tell by your DNA thing. They're like I don't know how they did it actually, but they were like looking at it.
Yeah, and that's not something I want to know. But
you can walk outside and get hit by a car, right? So it's not nothing's. Even if they have a pill that makes you live forever, right? There's always a chance you're going to die in an accident. Yeah. So life is finite. That's what makes life so awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with beliefs too. So it's hard to really dictate to people how they deal with grief because it really depends on your religious background as well, right? People that believe that there's an afterlife look at death a little bit differently. People that believe that life is finite look at it differently. People that believe in reincarnation look at things differently. But just the understanding that, there's a saying, when you're born, you get a life sentence, right? Because it's true.
Yeah.
Every one of us, there's not one person, well, there's one guy that beat it, right? Depending on what religion you're familiar with, but we're all gonna go, right?
Yeah.
So it's not concentrating on that piece and trying to cheat that. It's really living in the moment and enjoying what you have. So.
No, I agree. I think that's definitely there. What some people also ask, like your religious belief too. Like, are you super diehard religious? I would say probably not. I mean, you're
not super diehard religious, no, but I'm religious. I was brought up Ukrainian Catholic and was an altar boy, and you're baptized. I tell you to pray, you yell at me. So yeah, no, we're semi-religious.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I hope this was enjoyable. I hope we answered some of your questions. I hope you find it worth your time. Check out some of the podcasts. We've thrown a little pearls here and there, all to try to help you and try to get some of this knowledge out of my head because there's not that much left. So,
Thanks for watching, guys.
thanks.